Welcome back to True-Moto-Resto, and on this video we're going to continue with the GSX-R 750, the junkyard slabby, soon to be a Skoal Bandit replica. Stay tuned. So like I said, we're going to continue with the junkyard slabby today, the Skoal Bandit replica, and it's going to be Bandit in name and Bandit in function when I get this engine out of here. I still haven't done anything with this thing yet. It's still sitting there. I haven't even tried to start it. I'm too preoccupied with other things. I just don't want to have too many irons in the fire, and right now it's been bodywork taking up a good portion of the time. So one of the things I will show you today is what I'm planning to do in order to get accurate paint templates for this bike. There's a lot of different paint lines to consider, and I want to make sure that I get those as accurate as possible. And I think one of the challenges I'm likely to run into is I bought the Skoal Bandit decal kit out of the UK, and the Skoal Bandit color scheme was actually only available in the UK as far as I understand it. It wasn't a kit that was available in Canada or the United States. And so when I bought the kit, the tank decal, for example, is actually shaped to fit the European tank, which is a flatter tank. It doesn't have this hump in it here. It's a little bit slightly different shape. So that may or may not cause me some grief and complications as I go through this. But yeah, we'll get the template made for the tank. We're going to make the template for the front fairing, the fuel tank, the side panels, basically anywhere where there's going to be green paint going on top of the white. We need to have accurate paint lines in order to make sure that this is going to look good when the decals go on after the fact. All right, so what I'm doing here is making a template for the paint line on the upper fairing. So the idea being that anything above this green line, anything up here is going to be green, and then below here will be yellow, and then there's a decal that kind of sits in here. So the contour of the paint line has to be the same as the decal. So this is just a tracing that I made of the decal, which basically will sit right in there, something like that. Something to that effect. So then what I want to do is I don't want to be, I'm going to take this template to the paint booth as well. But the key thing is if I can make a template here with tape, then it just kind of helps the whole process. And then I'll make one for this side, and then I'll cut the hole out so that it helps locate the template. I'll cut along this black line, it'll locate the template on this side. Similarly at the back, and then I've already kind of got one started, the shape on the other side as well. So I want the paint to basically come down about a couple of millimeters below the decal. So then the decal will cover the paint line between the green and the white. So that's the plan. So once I get this one all taped up, the idea being then I will peel that off, and then I'll put tape on the back side so that it can't just kind of stick to everything. And then when I get to the point of painting, you can either tape this on, or you can, I guess it's a lot easier on a fuel tank because you can use small magnets to attach it. On a fairing like this, you probably just have to tape it on. It would be the easier way to go. And again, it's not foolproof. It's just a good guideline to just to help the painting process. I just don't. You don't want to be freehanding this stuff in the paint booth and then get home and find out that the decals are not gonna fit. So at a minimum, I take a tracing of the decal with me, and preferably a template. Right, so I peeled the template off the side here. You can see where I penciled around the decal there, and then I just taped around that pencil line. Put the tape on as you saw before. Now on the back side where it was sticky, I've just layered another layer of green tape on here. So if I turn this over, there's my stencil. So I'm just going to go around now and trim off all of the excess green here, the lighter green, and then I'll have my my template. So there we have it. So now I've got a template that I can just basically stick right up here, and because I've got the hole there and the edges, it's pretty easy to locate, and it fits basically right on that pencil line. So then of course all you have to do is reverse it, and now you've got a template for this side as well. So once you stick this onto the fairing, like if you tape it on at the top, what that then allows you to do is to mask below this template, so basically from where my thumb is down, and when you mask from there down, because this is all going to be painted white, now you're free to paint up here in the green. So this doesn't stay on, of course. This is just a guideline for where the tape masking has to start, and then once you've got your line laid out, then you can take this off and paint. All right, so there's my tape line template for the left side lower fairing, and to be honest, like, the value of this particular template is probably fairly limited because it will be pretty straightforward to get it's just basically a straight tape line above the hole, kind of halfway through the back of the aqueduct, and then basically to the apex of this curve here, and then the paint is all the way to the top. So not particularly difficult one, but I thought, you know what, better to have it just as a double check than to not, because one of the things I've been guilty of in the past is, I'm not an expert at painting and masking and whatnot, but I find it very easy to kind of mask on the wrong side of the line. So if I know I want to go here, I masked on the wrong side sometimes, and then I end up with the paint being off by the width of the tape. I did that once on my VF-1000R and had to repaint the tail section because of that. So if nothing else, it acts as a secondary test to make sure that I've got all my paint lines set out properly. On this one, this is the kind of the mid panel for the tail section. So what I've done here is I've made a tracing of the decals that go above the paint, and then I've basically just used the same spacing down to the paint line as would be between the decals. So that gives me the correct edge here. And then what I did was, because I ended up buying those blue fairings, the tail fairings, these guys, I was able to snap these together with the panels. They basically attach right here, and I was able to make sure that I had the paint lines correct. So I actually had it off about 1 millimeter too far up. So when I attached the tail section there, I got the paint lines correct. So that one is still stuck to the panel. This one I've just peeled off and put the backing on it. So yeah, I'm just going to trim that up, and then I'll have and then again, I've got measurements on here too, so I know how wide it is, I know how far it is to the top corner, all of that kind of good stuff. So I just spent the last 4 hours wet sanding all of this primed bodywork, and what I have come to learn is with this particular type of primer that I was using, the feather fill from Evercoat, is you got to put it on pretty thick. Excuse me. And you got to put it on thick and pretty wet, because if you don't, it basically goes on like stucco, and it's just an absolute brute to sand that smooth again. It dries pretty darn hard, and yeah, I had a heck of a time. Some of the panels, I just didn't put enough primer on it, and it was really, really rough, and it just took me forever and a day to flat it all back again. I'm sure I'm going to have to go over quite a few of the parts again just to get it smooth. Actually, you can see on the top here, that's still the stippling left from the primer being put on too dry. So I've still got to sand that back again, but boy oh boy, what a pain in the backside. So since I'm putting the Bandit 1200 engine in this bike, I'll tell you what I debated, and that's whether or not I was going to leave the decals that said basically GSX-R 750, or was I going to go and have some decals made up special to say GSX-R 1200, or maybe even GSX-R 712. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with this because the bike is still a GSX-R 750 by VIN number, even though it's got a 1200 in it. But by the time you've seen this, I probably have made the decision already. The decals may already be on, but let me know what you think anyway. Did I make the right call? So this is the fuel tank template for where I need to tape the white off for the green. So basically I laid on the stencil of the stripe decal, however you want to say it, around the tank, and this worked out to I think about 20 centimeters to the decal. So then I went a couple of millimeters beyond that just so I have adequate coverage, a couple of millimeters of green paint under the tape. That's the way it'll work. So basically I'll paint the majority of the tank white. It'll be kind of painted across the dividing line of the paint. I'm not going to just kind of butt up to it. I'll just kind of blow it all in up here. I won't paint all of this, but I'll blow in generally around here, all down here in white. And then once that's dry, all you got to do is drop the template right on the top there. So it just kind of lifts right off. It's just made of stenciling paper and masking tape, and that, along with some carefully placed measurements, will allow me to get a pretty darn good tape line. And I mean, I'm not gonna, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna be taping like exactly to this template per se, but it just makes sure that I get my tape lines correct. Like I'll be doing some measurements and whatnot in all the right places to get the right readings, and then I'll drop that on, and then that'll just help me make sure that I get the contours right. The hardest part, so this is fairly easy to know that it comes just back of this point here for the tape line, and it's fairly easy to mark it here. Where it gets difficult is just what curve do you put on it here. Like here it's basically a straight line, but you start having to curve it right here, and if you get that curvature wrong, then you're going to have paint either showing between the decals, or it'll be above the decal. It'll just be a mess. So that's the plan. We'll see how well it works. I did this on my ZX7 and it worked like a charm, but the thing with that was I actually had all the original paint on the tank to go by. I'm just going from photographs, and hopefully a few folks have sent me measurements to go from. I'm going to double check with whatever they send me, but there it is. Not pretty, but it will do the job. Okay, so because this is such a tricky paint line to get right and a tricky template to use, I'm just going to test it. Just kind of the wise thing to do. So what I'm doing is, obviously I put the template on the tank. I've got these little magnets which work really well for keeping it in place. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some fine line tape, and I'm just going to tape up as if I was painting it. And then I'm going to take off this and just see how accurate I ended up being with the tape line. Alright, so I did make some adjustments on this side, so it's running down a little deeper. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure from the filler cap over to a couple of points here, just to make sure I've got everything symmetrical. Yeah, so it's not symmetrical yet, so I got some adjustments to make. It's kind of hard to tell, but yeah, one side is running down a little deeper than the other, so about a centimeter off. So today I'm heading to the paint booth, actually this afternoon, And what I've done yesterday is I just started to go through the process of taping up some of the bodywork just to save myself a little bit of time when I get to the paint booth. This is not kind of the full masking that needs to be done, but it's a start. So typically what I like to do is any of the larger openings, even the smaller openings, I like to make sure everything is covered. And the reason for that is especially when you're two-toning anything, it's really the only time it's applicable is when you've got 2 or 3 different colors of paint going on. And in the case of the GSX-R, where there's going to be white and green, it's important not necessarily for the first layer, which is the white, but for when you get into the second colors, because let's say I paint the bottom half of this all white, and then I start to tape off here for the green. If you don't tape off these holes, 2 things can happen. One is the green paint's going to shoot through the holes and it's going to get on the inside. Sometimes you don't care about that, sometimes I do. In this case, it's the upper fairing. I don't want to see spattered green paint on the inside, so I kind of want to keep that clean looking. The second thing that can happen, and has happened to me before when I've forgotten to do this, is even though I'm going to mask off down here to keep this white, and I'm going to paper off down here, oftentimes it's possible that maybe the paper doesn't, the tape doesn't stick as well as it should, or if for any reason I haven't got a good seal at the back where I put the masking paper and the tape, then if the green paint can blow through one of these areas, and it's so atomized that it will actually come up underneath the masking paper, and you can get like a green haze showing through on the white. So the best way to avoid that, 2 ways. One is to mask off any and all of the holes, so you reduce the opportunity for the vaporized green paint or whatever color you're using to get where it shouldn't go. And the second is to take extra time and precaution and properly tape off the areas and masking off the areas where you want to preserve the other color, which in this case will be white. And usually that implies that around here where you see the visible paint lines, it's usually never an issue. It's usually in those areas at the back down here where it's easy to kind of miss or forget to be as diligent as you need to be, and that's where the blow by can kind of creep through underneath. So just things to consider when you're taping stuff off for multiple colors of paint. Similarly, I'm doing exactly the same thing on these panels. So you can see that all the ducts have got some tape on them. The fastener holes have also got tape on them. So that's just the precaution I'm taking. I also went through yesterday and just kind of double checked to make sure that I was happy with all the bodywork and that there was no potential problem areas and that kind of thing. So I think we're ready to go. So we'll get to the paint booth, and the idea being that I'll set everything up this afternoon, because it's going to take quite a while to set this up, because I don't like to just lay the stuff out on the painting bench, because there's a lot of examples of this bodywork where it needs to be raised off the surface to be able to get underneath, right? So you can't just lay that on a table and paint it, because for instance, you got to be able to paint that. This piece right here has to get paint on it, so you need to be able to get underneath it to some degree. So it'll take a bit of time to space this out. I mean, again, it's not just a matter of just sort of throwing it on the table, because you've also got to think about maneuverability and being able to get in with a paint gun without hitting. So if I paint, this panel here, and then I have to come over and paint a panel over here, I don't want my arm hitting the panel that I just painted. So strategically positioning everything in a way that you can get at it is part of the challenge. And that's with a bike like this, with so much bodywork in a single car paint booth, can be a bit of a challenge. So I might have to hang some stuff up in order to get enough room. So we'll see how that works out. Normally I don't hang anything. It's all sort of on wooden posts that are kind of attached to the planks that I use. And then I can usually get at everything, but there's so much of this stuff, I think I'm gonna have to either bring in some extra tables or hang some stuff up. Hanging isn't my favorite because it tends to kind of blow around when you hit it with a paint gun. I like it to be much more fixed. It's a personal preference. I know there's lots of guys that have the stuff hanging up and do fine with it. And then you basically end up having to try to hold it or support it while you're painting it, and I'm just not a fan of doing that. So, all right, since we're heading to the paint booth, I thought I'd show you the 3 paint guns that I typically use when I'm in the booth. So the first one is a Cartman, and you know this is a good gun because it says right there on the box, high quality. That's how you know. This is, I'm kidding, but I have to say that so far, this gun has been really, really, really good. For the money that I paid for this, it was super cheap. I think I paid about $80 Canadian for this. And let me see if I can get out of the bag here with one hand. Okay, so there it is. It performs really well. And this is what I use for my base coat. Feels really good in the hand. It's not heavy. And so far I've done about, I don't know, 15 paint jobs with that gun. I was using this originally as my base coat and clear coat gun, but then as I got more into the painting and I felt I was getting a little bit better at it, I decided to use this one for my base coat, and I moved on to this one for my clear coat. This is an Anest Iwata Kiwami 4. And I just love this gun. This is one of those. This obviously this is again not a. This thing weighs nothing. It's super light. Feels really good in the hand. And I mean this. I think I paid. It was $400 Canadian, I think, for this gun, and I had to buy the paint cup separately for it. And that's. I've been really happy with this. Now you'll see I've got the air cap there. I got to put that back on. However, what I always do is I keep separately inside here in some gun wash. There's the fluid tip, I guess it's called, or whatever it is. And then these are the other. I got a couple of other ones in here. It just helps keep everything clean. So. The other gun that I will be taking with me is this little guy, and this is the one I hope I don't need to use. So if I get any blow by past my tape lines, if any green paint sneaks by the tape and gets into the white, then typically it's going to be this little guy that I use just to put a bit of white paint in one of these cups here and just kind of gently dust it back in so I don't have to repaint an entire panel. So yeah, I hope I don't have to use it, but when I did the ZX-7, I had to use that a couple of times because I got some blow by on the tape. But yeah, so there they are. Those are the 3 that I typically use. Typically it's these 2 for the base, this one for the clear, and yeah, there you go. The one thing I will say that I learned when I was doing the Kawasaki and my VF1000R, I learned a bit of a lesson on especially using the regular masking tape. I mean, this is good professional grade masking tape, but what I've learned is, I learned it the hard way, is if I'm masking sort of across a curved area and into these kinds of areas, that the tendency is to kind of want to stick it at one spot, pull it tight, tack it down over here, and then start pushing it down all the way. So then my thoughts were originally that if I tack it here and pull it tight and drop it down, it'll be nice and straight. And then you kind of push it down all the way and you push it into the crevices and into the curves and whatnot. That turned out to be a really bad idea. And the reason for that is when you put tension on the tape, so if you kind of pull it tight across a bit of a valley, and you push it down into that valley under tension and you stick it down. You think it's stuck. As soon as the paint starts to hit it, it'll want to release. There must be something in it. Maybe the solvents penetrate the tape and start to lift it a little bit, and it only takes just a tiny lift, and before you know it, if I'm painting, you know, green up here and that tape is starting to lift, then you don't have that nice crisp paint line anymore. You start to get that dusted blow by under the tape, and then now you're back into waiting for the green to dry so you can mask the green, and then you can blow the white in again and all that kind of nonsense. So what I've learned is just not to put this tape under tension when I'm putting my paint lines down, and I also go back and kind of double and triple check to make sure that I've not got any gaps in the tape, and that way it's more likely that I'm going to get a good clean paint line. Paint that I'm using is Valspar. This is basically it's ready to spray. It's pre-reduced. It's got the activator already in it, so I don't have to mix paint when I'm at the paint booth. So there it is, Valspar refinish. I used to use Chromax, and this Chromax Mosaic, and I find it to be a better paint, but it's way more expensive. 3 times the amount of money at the place where I buy that versus the Valspar. So yeah, the reason I find this to be the Chromax to be a nicer paint to spray is it seems to be a little bit more forgiving, and that you can kind of seem to be able to apply it, you know, wet right away. So you can, the first coat you put on, you don't really have to hold back. You can give it kind of the full beans on the first coat, and then, you know, second coat, third coat, whatever you need. Whereas with the Valspar, if you go too heavy on the first coat, it does tend to fisheye a little bit. I was told that by a professional painter, a buddy of mine, and I certainly did experience that myself. So you kind of have to go much lighter on the first coat with this, and then once you've got the first coat on and it's tacked up okay, then you can hit it normally. So results at the end of the day are basically the same. You just have to use a slightly different technique. So today I received a package from Germany. One of my channel subscribers contacted me. Has been watching the Junkyard Slabby GSX-R 750 build, and saw that I was in need of a rear fender, and very generously agreed to sell me a spare fender that he had available. So thank you very much to Ralph Harrison for doing that. Very much appreciated. So I'm going to crack it open here and see what we have. There's a rear fender. Look at that. Beautiful. And then there also here is the rear license plate light. That assembly is here also. So I'm gonna add that as well. So thank you very much, Ralph. Pleasure working with you on that, and Ralph gave me a great deal on that. I'm very pleased. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Awesome. All right, I put all this stuff in here last night. Got it all mounted up, and I'm just going to tack. I just wiped everything off with the panel wipe. I'm going to use a tack cloth in a minute, and then we can start with the white. This fender I'm going to take back out because it's only getting green on it, but everything else has to have white on it. So I also have to do a little bit of work. I'd like to have these sitting up higher off this block here a little bit. So So I'm gonna prop those up and then we'll get to it. Yeah, so like I said, the first coat of the white using this Valspar, it has to go on so thin that you barely got anything on at all. So, but we tried to spray this first panel as we would normally, and it just fish-eyed like crazy. So I just dusted this on much lighter. You can barely even see there's any white on it right now. Okay, so this is 5 coats of white. I'm really not happy with how this particular batch of Valspar was covered. Brutally bad. Anyway, I also elected to give a dusting of white on the areas that are going to be green, just because of how difficult it is to get this paint to lay down on the first coat. So I ended up having to go back into the city to get another, actually a quart of white, because I ran out, if you can believe that. Unbelievable. So this is 5 coats, and I probably need to do one more coat on here before it's going to be satisfactory. So it is going to be another long day in the booth. Okay, it's now 2:30 p.m. I've been in here since 8 a.m. approximately. So this stuff here that is staying white, there's going to be no color on it. That's all covered up. And the next color is going to be the lighter shaded green, which matches the wheels, which is going on the top of the fairing. It's all masked off at the bottom. And all this stuff, which gets the darker green, is covered up. And then the top of the tank is exposed. Everything else is masked off. So we should be good to shoot the next coat of green on here. Okay, first coat of the lighter green is on there. So definitely need one more coat on there, of course, but there's now we got the tank. So I think, yeah, at least one more coat. We'll see how that is. So then the plan will be whatever it takes to get this covered, 1 or 2 more coats, let that dry for an appropriate amount of time. And while that's drying, before I unmask it for clear coat, I'm going to get this stuff masked up for the darker green. So that was the plan, to basically let this stuff dry while I'm masking up this stuff. That should do it. It's 2 coats. And as always seems to happen with me, if you can see here, there's a couple of spots right on there, And there where the tape, the fine line tape lifted, the spots here as well. So I'm expecting to get a bit of blow through under there, but the good news is the decal will cover that. So hopefully that's the only spots where I'm going to experience that. All right, so I just unmasked from the lighter green and cover that over, because I'm about to paint the darker green. This is all masked now. Only basically the side panels and the lower fairings. Got the tank. Everything turned out pretty good, except I buggered up my tape here, so I'm gonna have to dust that in with a little brush, a little airbrush. Mask that off and just dust that in before I clear coat. Not a big deal. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go around one more time, check that my tape is nice and snug down. I don't need any blow by anywhere, because that's all the thing that takes time to fix. Okay, first coat of clear is on, and I messed up right here because I had this all covered up. So that was green dust off the drop sheet that I forgot to tack off. So when I come back to clear all the decals in, that's gonna have to get blown back in with some white and fixed. But aside from that, she's looking pretty good. Fix that boo-boo there where I got the blow-by, so that's all fixed. So one more coat of clear, and then we're done for the day. And I can come back tomorrow morning and pick everything up. All right, so it's 8 p.m. It's been 12 hours. And really the only bugger of something that I made was this right here. There's a bit of green dust there that got trapped on before I spotted it. So I'll basically, once this all has to get sanded back anyway before it gets decals on it, because it's going to get cleared over. So I can fix that at that time. So, but yeah, everything came out okay. So far, so good. Couple of the specks there in the paint, but that's fine. That's, as I said, it's going to get sanded anyway because it all has to get re-cleared when the decals go on it. So there we go. Back tomorrow morning to pick it all up. So I got my fender stripes from Graham at the Imageworks. Another fantastic job. That's the website, bikestickers.com. I've used the Imageworks and Graham's business for quite some time now, and I'm always very happy with the product and his service. Exceptionally good. So yeah, this is not a paid advertisement or anything like that, but I just feel it's right to give credit where credit's due, and they do a really good job. So back home with all of the painted parts here, and I'm really pleased with how everything came out. Very sort of minimal issues. The one problem that I had right here, which I'll fix up before it goes back to the paint booth, because some of these things there's a couple of bits of trash here and there, but not too bad at all. But I'll fix that up. This has to go back. There's going to be a decal on the bottom of this anyway that has to get cleared in. But that was my only mistake. 10 hours into the day, tired, forgot to tack off, and yeah, that's what happens. But anyway, overall, I cannot complain. It all came out looking pretty damn good, so yeah, really pleased. The templates all worked out superbly well. Really happy with that. So yeah, so the next thing is I'm just gonna let this stuff sit around for probably 4 or 5 days, fully cure and gas off, and then I'll wet sand it, flat it all back with 400 wet, and then I can start with putting all the decals on it. And I think I'll do it in a couple of batches over a couple of days. It was just, it took me 2 hours just to set the stuff up to be painted on the stands and everything. So I think it's just easier to do it in 2 batches, and then it's not as grueling an effort to get it all done. So still haven't fired this thing up yet. That's next. I just pulled the plugs out of it, and we'll get it cranked over soon. And that's really the next thing I need to do is to pull the engine out of this. So stay tuned for more. This is going to have to happen real soon. And thanks for watching. All right, so that's going to be a wrap for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I really appreciate all the subscriptions, the comments, and smash that like button once in a while. That really helps. Thanks, and we'll talk to you in the next video.